Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shinichi suddenly covered his chest, a strong feeling of suffocation swept through his trachea, and it seemed that something was violently surging in his chest, and the sound of his heartbeat appeared clearly in his ears. Veins popped out on Shinichi's face, neck, and forehead. He supported himself with one hand and held his collar tightly with the other hand, gasping for breath. The little Shiba Inu Enji was frightened by the change of his master and was anxiously shouting around him. You! What did you do? Grandpa Marimu slowly began to tell a story. More than 400 years ago, the swordsmen of the Demon Slayer Corps who were determined to slay demons created a breathing method, and successfully used the powerful breathing method to eliminate countless evil demons. In the early days of the breathing method, a large number of powerful swordsmen and countless powerful breathing methods emerged, and the forest breathing that has been passed down from generation to generation in our Mori family also originated from that time. However, hundreds of years later, I have become the last heir of the forest breathing. Young man, what I want to tell you today is the ancestor who created the forest breathing. There was a trace of sadness in the eyes of old man Marimu. He remembered the time when he first heard this story, which was also the happiest time of his life. Opposite to old man Marimu, Shinichi's strong sense of suffocation was slightly relieved, but a feeling of fatigue gradually spread in his body. That ancestor was not an excellent swordsman at first. On the contrary, when he was young, he was more like a playboy who was uneducated. Until the day he became an adult, his character changed dramatically. He not only accumulated a fortune in just 1 year, but also revitalized the family, making the Mori family a famous wealthy family in Kyoto Prefecture. Once again by chance, the ancestor learned that there were creatures called evil spirits in this world. At that time, the ancestor, who had already achieved success and fame, resolutely gave up his comfortable life and chose to become a swordsman. Then he created the forest breathing method within a year. Speaking of this, Mr. Marimu showed a proud look on his face, but it soon became dim. But it was when the ancestor was at his most high-spirited that a disaster occurred. On a snowy night, the ancestor disappeared on the road to slay demons. When the ancestor returned to the family, he had already fallen into a demon. What? Became a demon? Shinichi, who originally didn't care about this story at all, heard that the ancestor of the Moriki family had become a demon, and his eyes widened immediately, not caring about the fatigue in his body. Yes, the pride of the Marimu family, the genius ancestor became a ghost. On the night he returned to the family, the entire Marimu family was massacred by the ancestor, leaving only the ancestor's 2 children hiding in the cellar. At that time, the Marimu family had reached the brink of extinction, but it was also on that night that the ancestor who had fallen into a ghost disappeared. When the ancestor reappeared, it was more than 10 years later. The ancestor's 2 children had grown up and pulled the Marimu family back from the brink of extinction, but one night, the ancestor who had fallen into a ghost returned to the family again. However, that night, the ancestor did not kill anyone. Instead, he passed on the forest breathing that he had created throughout his life to his descendants within the next year, and told his descendants to pass on the forest breathing from generation to generation. The ancestor himself, on a night, used this sun-will sword to kill himself. The last words before his death were to atone for his sins. Grandpa Marimu pulled out the emerald green sun-will sword from the scabbard with a sad tone. Shinichi stared at Grandpa Mori in a daze. Why does this story sound so outrageous? The ancestors who became demons passed down the breathing method to their descendants. Grandpa Mori continued, the Mori family has kept in mind the teachings of their ancestors. For hundreds of years, the entire family has taken slaying demons as its mission. Every generation of Mori children will join the Demon Slayer Corps. For hundreds of years, the blood of the Mori family has been all over the history of the Demon Slayer Corps. It's just that perhaps we, the descendants, are incompetent. No Mori child can truly inherit the forest breath of our ancestors, so even those Mori children who are qualified to become pillars are unwilling to truly be named Mori pillars. Things are unpredictable. The once prosperous Demon Slayer family is now left with only me, but fate may have been predetermined. Young man, before I enter the coffin, I finally met someone who can truly inherit the forest breath, and that's you. Young man, you are the chosen one. Boom. Shinichi's head suddenly felt a sharp pain, and in his mind, the figure wearing a green haori flashed by. What? Could that person, no, ghost, be the ancestor of the Moriki family? How is this possible? I thought this was written by Xiao. Tell me. Who would believe this outrageous? Shinichi's heart was shocked. Although he didn't want to believe it, the figure that appeared in his mind for no reason was not an illusion. Mr. Moriki didn't tell the story anymore, but let Shinichi think for himself. At this moment, the door of the room was knocked gently, and Rukawa Chinana walked into the room with a full plate of dorayaki with a rich and sweet aroma and a large pot of tea. Soon, Rukawa Chinana placed the dorayaki and tea. Rukawa Chinana also thoughtfully prepared a small plate with fragrant meat rice in it. This was prepared for Enji. Seeing that his master was fine, Enji happily wagged his tail and ate happily from the small plate. Seeing Enji's furry little head, Rukawa Chinana swallowed it, but finally couldn't resist the temptation and touched Enji's little head. The tea was wafting with a faint fragrance. Old man Moriki picked up the teacup and gestured to Shinichi. Young man, try it. After saying that, he drank the tea in the cup. Shinichi, who was still struggling with his conscience, was confused. He subconsciously followed the old man Moriki and drank the teacup. The tea tasted slightly bitter and a little sour. It was not good to drink. Shinichi frowned immediately. It's really hard to drink. But soon Shinichi was stunned. He didn't vomit. He just drank a cup of tea. Shinichi looked at the teacup in his hand and widened his eyes. How could it be possible? He hadn't eaten or drunk anything for a long, long time. Becoming a ghost means that it is impossible to eat any food except human flesh, but now, he can actually drink a cup of tea. Experiencing the feeling of being a human again, Shinichi was so excited that he couldn't contain himself. He directly lifted the whole teapot and poured the tea into his mouth in big gulps. Although it didn't taste good, it felt good to be able to drink something. After drinking the whole pot in one breath, Shinichi wiped his mouth with satisfaction. It's hard to believe. What kind of tea is this? Grandpa Marimu held the teacup and smiled as he said, this is wisteria tea. For ghosts, wisteria flowers are quite disgusting. Even a certain concentration of wisteria glycosides can poison some weak ghosts. Pa! The copper teapot fell to the ground, and the satisfied expression on Shinichi's face froze. Wisteria tea. Chapter 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shinichi looked at the teapot that fell to the ground. His face was very ugly, and the invisible anger began to radiate from his whole body. Old man, you'd better give me an explanation. Mr. Marimu put down the teacup, stood up, smiled and hooked his finger at Shinichi, full of provocation. Asshole. Shinichi was like a lit barrel of explosives. In anger, he raised his fist and hit Mr. Marimu. He saw that the old man and the lower windlass had a fight back and forth before, and he thought that he would not be killed by his punch. This old man is too hateful. Bang! A skinny palm easily caught Shinichi's punch. Shinichi was stunned. He was very sure that his punch just now was strong enough. Even if it couldn't smash the rock, it could at least leave a mark on it. But why did the old man in front of him look so relaxed that he didn't even shake his body? Shinichi was very surprised, but Mr. Marimu would not give him time to react. He saw Mr. Marimu's palms closed instantly, firmly grasped Shinichi's fist, stepped back with his right foot, and pulled. Shinichi immediately felt a huge force coming from his fist, and his body was pulled forward uncontrollably. Mr. Marimu's hunched body bent and twisted at an incredible angle, and changed his posture in an instant, leaning against Shinichi. Bang! Shinichi staggered and hit Mr. Marimu's back, but it was not over yet. Mr. Marimu raised his right foot and kicked back. Shinichi's feet instantly lost balance, and then his arms felt a huge pulling force again. His eyes blurred, and the whole person seemed to lose balance. When Shinichi reacted, he had already fallen to the ground in embarrassment. it took Shinichi only a few seconds from punching to being knocked down. When he got up again, he didn't realize what had just happened, but a strong sense of shame and anger immediately filled his brain. In an instant, Shinichi's eyes became even more scarlet. "Come again." Shinichi roared and rushed towards Mr. Moriki again. Mr. Moriki did not refuse, and smiled and motioned Shinichi to attack again, just like that, bang. 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 The dull sound of flesh falling on the floor continued to echo in this room. Later, even Rukawa Chinana, who was watching on the side, couldn't bear it. It was too cruel. She hurriedly hugged Xiao Yuanji and left the room. The full Yuanji was heartless. It seemed that he felt that Mr. Moriki had no ill intentions, so Xiao Yuanji ignored his master who was being beaten like a sandbag. I don't know how long it has been. Shinichi's eyes are red, and he stands there panting unwillingly, while the old man Marimu in front of him is still calm. "Are you coming again, young man? My old bones can still hold on." "It's you. Did you do something to me before? Just like that wisteria tea. I can feel my strength weakening. This is you." Shinichi is not stupid. In the fight just now, he has long discovered that his own strength and speed have weakened countless times. He has always relied on the speed and strength after the ghost transformation to hunt other evil ghosts. Once his strength and speed advantages are not obvious, he will be no different from an ordinary boy who doesn't know kung fu in front of old man Marimu. Old Master Mori looked at Shinichi who was full of reluctance and said, "Young man, tell me, why did you help us deal with the lower string for that night at Shirai Mountain? You also hate demons, right?" Shinichi sneered, "Of course. I hate demons as much as you do, but I'm afraid that in their eyes, I am no different from those man-eating demons, right? Old man, why do you think those swordsmen of the Demon Slayer Corps will accept a demon as a swordsman? So, don't think of me learning any bullshit breathing method, my own strength is enough." Old Master Mori sighed and looked at Shinichi deeply, "But no matter how powerful your power is, it still belongs to the power of the demon, not your own power. I don't care what power it is, as long as it is enough for me to take revenge. Then do you want to be a ghost for life? Young man, don't you want to experience the feeling of being a human again?" As soon as Old Master Mori finished speaking, the whole room fell into silence. Shinichi's scarlet eyes stared at Mr. Mori. "Can you make me a human again?" Shinichi's voice trembled a little. If possible, he didn't want to become a demon hated and feared by humans, but facing Shinichi's expectant eyes, Mr. Mori shook his head slowly. "No, I can't turn a demon back into a human." "But," Mr. Mori suddenly said, but Shinichi's disappointed expression froze. "Is there still hope? Although I can't make you return to your human identity, I can make you feel human again." Boom boom. Grandpa Mori's words exploded in Shinichi's heart like a thunderbolt. How to do it? He immediately asked. Grandpa Mori smiled and pointed to the teapot on the ground. "Aren't you now? Young man, you should know that wisteria flowers can drive away evil spirits just by smell. How can evil spirits drink wisteria tea containing essence?" As he said, Grandpa Mori handed Shinichi a mirror. Shinichi looked down at the mirror in his hand. The familiar yet unfamiliar face in the mirror made him a little dazed. The face in the mirror was much softer than the hideous appearance reflected in the stream at the beginning. The originally protruding blood vessels disappeared under the skin, and the sharp fangs were no longer hideous, but looked sharper than ordinary people. The terrible and tyrannical aura that had been shrouding his face was completely dissipated, and the bloodshot in his pupils was also completely dissipated. The scarlet eyes rarely looked much softer. The black claws on the fingertips also faded a lot. At first glance, Shinichi now doesn't look like a ghost, but more like a handsome and arrogant boy. Shinichi looked at himself in the mirror with a complicated look, and suddenly a piece of dorayaki with a sweet smell blocked his sight. "Try it, and experience the feeling of being a human again, and then tell me your choice, young man." In the spacious ancestral hall of the Moriki mansion, Rukawa Chinana held Enji and walked to the side of Mr. Moriki who was kneeling quietly in front of a pile of tablets. Rukawa Chinana asked softly, "Mr. Mitsuyo, did Mr. Shinichi agree?" Hearing this, Mr. Moriki looked at one of the many tablets in front of him. On that tablet, the words Moriki Koto were engraved, "The choice of the ancestors will not be wrong. This child will truly pass on the breath of the forest." Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Master Mitsuyo, I remember you once said that it is very difficult to practice forest breathing. In the end, most of the disciples of each generation of Mori will choose to practice other breathing methods as an auxiliary. Why are you so sure that Master Shinichi will succeed? Under the eaves, Rokuwa Chinana asked Grandpa Mori in confusion, and Old Man Mori looked into the distance, and after a moment of silence, he slowly said, "Because Shinichi is too similar to the original ancestor, but this child is more perseverant than the ancestor." The ancestor admitted that he committed countless crimes after he fell into a demon, which is why the ancestor chose to commit suicide, and Shinichi, this child has never hurt any human being even after becoming a demon, so I firmly believe that he will truly inherit the forest breath of the ancestor, and even complete the final form that even the ancestor himself has not succeeded in cultivating. After listening to this, Rokuwa Chinana nodded and said seriously, "I understand." Old Man Mori seemed to have thought of something again, and looked back at Rokuwa Chinana with a trace of reluctance in his eyes. The Mori family's 100-year-old duty is to kill evil spirits, which means that everyone in the Mori family is you may be in danger, but you are different, Chinanai. You have your own name. You are not a Mori family member, and you have no responsibility to gamble your life for the Mori family. Child, everything I said before counts. The Mori family's current foundation depends on you. You can take away all the foundation of the Mori family at any time. This is the reward you deserve. When Rokuwa Chinana heard this, her originally calm face tightened instantly, and the whole person suddenly knelt on the ground and said excitedly, "Mr. Mitsuyo. Please don't say such things. If you hadn't brought Chinana back to the family in Kyujin town, Chinana would have become a ghost in the wasteland. From the moment you brought Chinana back, the Mori family, Chinanai is not afraid of sacrifice. Chinanai is willing to contribute everything for the Mori family's duty of slaying demons. Please don't drive away Chinanai, Mr. Mitsuyo." Plop. The little girl kowtowed heavily on the floor very hard. "Hey!" Mr. Moriki quickly helped Rokuwa Chinana up. His eyes were complicated. He really felt sorry for this child, although Rokuwa Chinana always regarded herself as a servant, but in the heart of Mr. Moriki, he also regarded her as his own granddaughter. If possible, Mr. Moriki was willing to pass on the Moriki family to Rokuwa Chinana, and let her become Moriki Chinana, but whether it was the Moriki family's duty to slay demons, or Rokuwa Chinana herself, they were unwilling, because for Chinana, the surname Rokuwa was equally important, and it carried her thoughts for her parents who cared for her very much. In that famine year, her parents would rather not eat for many days and save the last food for their children. The scenes under the eaves were heard clearly by a figure hiding behind the door. It was still daytime, and he couldn't walk out of the door. Shinichi stroked Enji, who was lying on his knees, with one hand, and held a piece of dorayaki that had cooled down with the other hand. Listening to the conversation outside, Shinichi's face did not change. Instead, he opened his mouth and bit off half of the dorayaki in one bite, chewing hard. Although I don't know how Mr. Moriki did it, Shinichi can eat food now. Of course, it is limited to dorayaki. Perhaps it is because he is still a ghost. Other foods, whether meat or noodles, are all tasteless like wall skin in Shinichi's mouth. Although he can swallow it, it is extremely torturous, but dorayaki is different. I don't know if it is the influence of the past. Shinichi can taste the faint sweetness of dorayaki. Of course, it is only a very subtle sweetness, but just this is enough. He hasn't tasted anything for a long time, so at Shinichi's request, the dorayaki in his hand was a special version. If ordinary people took a bite, they would be choked to death by the sweetness. The water used to mix the dough was high-concentration sugar water, half of the bean paste filling was sugar, and a lethal amount of sweet honey was sprinkled on it. But even with such a sweet and greasy calorie bomb, Shinichi chewed it with big mouthfuls, and even thought it was not tasty enough, and was ready to sprinkle some white sugar on it. Speaking of which, Shinichi also felt that everything was a bit dreamy. He actually agreed to learn his forest breathing from Mr. Morimo, which was simply incredible. Shinichi couldn't figure out why he agreed. Was it because Mr. Morimo allowed him to eat again? But Mr. Morimo also clearly said that he couldn't turn himself back into a human being. Although it was a bit regretful, Shinichi was also a little fortunate. If Mr. Morimo really said that he could turn him back into a human being, then Shinichi might hesitate. Although it was shameful to become an evil ghost, Shinichi couldn't deny that becoming an evil ghost also gave him considerable power, whether it was a powerful force or not. The amount of blood and powerful blood demon art, all of which made Shinichi, who was originally just an ordinary thin beggar, have the power to fight against the powerful 12 demon moons. Shinichi was not sure whether he could have such a strong power after practicing breathing after turning back to human. He never thought he was a genius. It's good now, just try it. Even if it can't be practiced into the forest breathing, at least it is worthy of the kindness of Mr. Moriki who saved Yuenji and let him taste the taste. Thinking of this, Shinichi stuffed the last big piece of dorayaki in his hand into his mouth, then clenched his fist, feeling the power that was constantly recovering and increasing in his body. After absorbing a lot of vitality from the fourth lower string whirl, Shinichi could clearly feel that both his body and strength had increased a lot. Calculated by the first evil ghost Karasuma at the beginning, Shinichi's strength before fighting the whirl after opening the blood burst could be equivalent to 8 or 9 Karasuma. Now Shinichi can be equivalent to more than 20 Karasuma. However, Shinichi was not excited. Instead, he loosened his fists and had a solemn look on his face. He had become stronger, but in reality, he was not as strong as the fully powered Ruri. The fourth lower string, Ruri, its strength was probably equal to 50 Karasuma. If it weren't for Ruri's carelessness, coupled with the desperate consumption of Old Man Moriki and a group of demon slayers, that night, perhaps they could not kill Ruri at all. Only the fourth lower string has such strength. How strong are the 3, 2, and 1 above the fourth? There are also upper strings that are superior to the lower strings, and their strength is even more unimaginable. And at the top, the ancestor of demons, Muzan, who created all demons, how strong is it? Shinichi opened his mouth slightly, and his face, which had been much softer, became visibly ferocious, with sharp fangs exposed from his lips, and the claws on his fingertips extended by half a centimeter. Muzan. I will definitely kill you. Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At night, a crescent moon hangs in the sky, and the cold moonlight fills the earth. In the bamboo forest outside the Morimo mansion, Shinichi, who has changed into a training suit, stares at the old man Morimo across from him. What? You want me to sit there in a daze holding a pot of weeds? Shinichi points to a pot of green, grass in his right hand. Old man Senmu said seriously, no, it's not daze, it's meditation. The breath of the forest comes from the breath of the forest, or it comes from the infinite natural breath. If you want to practice the breath of the forest, the most necessary point is to understand the sound of nature. From a small grass to a towering tree, they also have life, and they breathe all the time. Calm down and meditate, listen to their breathing, and truly integrate your breathing with them. Shinichi's mouth twitched. You said it so nicely, but don't you think it's stupid to sit there holding a pot of weeds? This is not a weed, it's the chilling grass passed down from generation to generation in our Senmu family. It's very useful. Every generation of Senmu children relies on it to feel the breath of the forest. Young people, slowly comprehend it. Just like that, Shinichi sat stupidly in the bamboo forest holding this pot of chilling grass, his scarlet eyes staring at the green grass in the pot. An hour passed, and Shinichi felt nothing. 2 hours passed, and Shinichi still felt nothing. 3 hours passed, and Shinichi felt a little itchy at the root of his teeth, and his fangs stretched unconsciously. 4 hours passed, and Shinichi felt that he had been fooled. He was very angry and wanted to teach that old man a lesson. 5 hours passed, and Rukoa China brought a large plate of dorayaki with various lethal sweet products and a large pot of wisteria tea. Shinichi felt that for the sake of dorayaki and wisteria tea, his resentment towards Mr. Moriki was slightly reduced. Just like that, a day passed, and Shinichi carried a pot of chilling grass but got nothing. Time passed slowly, and 6 days passed. Shinichi was still sitting in the bamboo forest holding a pot of chilling grass in a daze, but the chilling grass in his hand had been replaced twice. After the previous chilling grass withered, Mr. Moriki took Shinichi to the Moriki family's planting site to replace another batch. However, when Shinichi saw the chilling grass growing randomly in the backyard of the Morimo mansion, his teeth itched again. What is the difference between this chilling grass in the yard and weeds? Isn't it just growing in this yard? Late at night on the 7th day, it was still the cold moonlight, under the silver light, in the bamboo forest. Yuji is also a traitor. He was bribed by someone after a few meals. Now he is almost eating like a ball. He doesn't look like a Shiba Inu. He will soon become a pig. Shinichi looked at the chilling grass in his hand with a sullen face and a gloomy expression. The breeze blew past, the green leaves swayed slowly, and a drop of dew near the morning slowly condensed on the leaves. Of course I know that you plants can breathe. The 9-year compulsory education in my previous life is deeply imprinted in my soul. To explain it scientifically, what is your respiration, but what use is it to me? Shinichi muttered to himself at the chilling grass in the flower pot. Even ghosts have appeared in this world. What is science? I am just an ordinary person, not a genius. Whether it is the power of ghosts or the breathing method, to me, they are only things that exist in stories and novels. But when all this really happened to me, I don't know how to deal with it. It's not wrong to pursue power for revenge. I seem to understand the power of ghosts and the breathing method these days. The two are not contradictory. For me, what really bothers me is the prejudice that is as big as a mountain in people's hearts. Even if I practice the breathing method, I am afraid that it will not change my identity. In the eyes of many people, I will still be an alien, a ghost. One day I am a ghost, and I will be branded with this mark for the rest of my life. Wait. Why am I chatting with a pot of grass? I have been here for a long time, and my brain has been corrupted by that old man. Shinichi said with some self-mockery, but suddenly, he felt a chill in his palm. Shinichi looked down and found that it was the dew on the leaves of the chilling grass dripping on his palm. When the cold touch of the palm of the hand was transmitted to the brain, a sudden chill swept over Shinichi's body, and a green light seemed to pass before Shinichi's eyes, and then a strange feeling sprouted in his heart. Everything was so magical and incredible. Shinichi could clearly feel a different breath every time he breathed. It was not a smell, but a special breath, like a soft and tough breath. This feeling. Shinichi was stunned. He lowered his head and looked at the pot in his hand that was swaying slightly in the breeze. Chilling grass, is it you? I seem to really hear your breathing. In the distance of the bamboo forest, beside a clear stream, under a sturdy willow tree, old man Senmu, who was originally hunched over, slowly straightened his back after a breeze passed by, with a relieved smile on his face. I knew this child could do it. The countless green branches hanging from the sturdy willow tree swayed in the wind, and seemed to be happy for old man Senmu. Before dawn, Shinichi returned to the closed room. In the room, Mr. Moriki had been waiting there for a long time. Seeing Shinichi walk in, Mr. Moriki smiled and picked up a cup of wisteria tea. Did you hear it? Shinichi gently put down the chilling grass in his hand. Yes, I heard it. It's incredible but wonderful. They seem to be guiding me. I can vaguely feel that behind their breathing, there is a magnificent vitality. Mr. Moriki put down the teacup and said with emotion, Shinichi, you are better than I thought. You are right, that is the call of the forest's breathing, and the breath of the forest contains the magnificent and endless vitality. Shinichi looked at Mr. Moriki, and for the first time he felt that Mr. Moriki looked so pleasing to the eye. So, next, can you teach me the real breathing method and swordsmanship? This is also the question I want to ask you. Are you really ready to practice the forest's breathing? Shinichi, tell me your true thoughts. Mr. Moriki asked back. Shinichi pondered for a moment, and finally nodded heavily. I am willing. Please teach me. Mr. Mori's smile disappeared, his expression became serious. He stood up solemnly, took down the horizontal sunwool sword on the wooden table behind him, and drew the sword out of the sheath. the green sun will sword that has been passed down for 100 years. The breath of the forest has a new successor. Chapter 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Forest breathing focuses on listening to the sounds of nature, connecting every blood vessel and every muscle in your body with nature, and fighting with the majestic vitality behind the breathing method. In the bamboo forest, Old Man Morimo held a wooden sword and explained to Shinichi. There are 11 types of forest breathing, created by our Morimo family ancestor Moriki Shinichi. Except for the final type that only exists in the records, the other 10 types of swordsmanship are all extremely powerful. However, we descendants are dull, and even the most outstanding Morimo children can only comprehend the first 8 types. Shinichi frowned slightly when he heard this. What about you, old man? That at this point, a trace of loneliness and sadness flashed across Old Man Morimo's face. My comprehension is also poor, and I can only comprehend 7 types of swordsmanship. What? Even you, old man, can only use 7 sword moves. Shinichi was really a little shocked. He knew the old man's strength very well. If it weren't for his old age and physical weakness, the strength of Old Man Morimo would not be lower than that of the windlass. Old Man Morimo smiled and shook his head. Some things are destined, Shinichi, you are different from us. I believe you are the one who can really carry forward the breath of the forest. Now, I will show you the first 7 forms. As soon as the voice fell, Old Man Morimo took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Buzz! The invisible air wave blew the fallen bamboo leaves on the ground. In Shinichi's scarlet eyes, he could sense that a large amount of majestic vitality was rapidly gathering towards the body of Old Man Morimo. Strips of shriveled muscles and old blood vessels, majestic vitality washed over the body of Old Man Morimo. The muscles became full again, and the blood vessels became round again. In just a moment, the originally hunched body of Old Man Morimo gradually stood up. The pale hair moved without wind, and a touch of green light flashed in the somewhat turbid eyes. He stepped forward with his right foot, bent his body, and made a standard sword drawing and slashing posture. Shinichi, who was standing next to him, suddenly felt a strong fighting spirit, and the sound of metal clashing seemed to ring in his ears. Mori no breathing, first form iron birch slash. Old Man Mori shouted, and the wooden sword instantly slashed horizontally. The blade was wrapped in green light, and in a trance, the green blade light was wrapped with an indestructible momentum like a tidal wave. Crack, crack, crack. Wherever the blade light went, countless green bamboos were broken. The following contains the author's annotation. First form iron birch slash, an instant horizontal slash infused with vitality, wrapped in the breath of the world's hardest tree, the iron birch, indestructible, unstoppable. Before Shinichi could react, Old Man Morimo flashed and appeared in front of a rather thick green bamboo, and stabbed out with a wooden sword. Breath of the forest, type 2, willow of vitality. Puff, puff. Many illusory green branches suddenly emerged from the thick green bamboo where the wooden sword was cut, swaying gently like willow branches. At a certain moment, the green bamboo instantly lost its color as if it had withered, and then revived again at a certain moment, regaining vitality. Type 2 Willow of Vitality communicates with the power of nature, uses vitality as a guide, and stabs the blade containing vitality into the body. For the enemy, it will be a nightmare of absorbing vitality, and for comrades, it will be a powerful aid to help comrades. Swish! The blade flashed, and Mr. Morimo rushed out like a sharp sword. Mori's breath, type 3 Thorn. The brown wooden sword instantly turned into a green light, and pierced into a huge rock in an instant. Stone chips flew, smoke and dust dissipated, and the ordinary wooden sword had been deeply pierced into the rock, leaving only the handle. Type 3 Thorn. The blade pierces straight, and the attack is pierced at an extremely fast speed, like a thorn spike, extremely sharp, and the modified type Thorn wrap, multiple stabs around the enemy at an extremely fast speed, making the enemy seem to be surrounded by countless thorns. Pulling out the wooden sword from the rock, Mr. Morimo closed his eyes slightly and swung a slash, but the force was not strong, and the surrounding green bamboo was shaken and shook, and countless bamboo leaves fell. I saw that Master Morimo stepped hard on the ground, and the whole person actually flew up nearly 10 meters high, and a green light flashed. Mori no breathing, fourth form dandelion dance, dot in the air. Master Marimu's body was like a dandelion dancing in the wind. Although it was gentle, it left dozens of afterimages. When Master Marimu fell, there was not a single bamboo leaf on his body. Fourth form dandelion dance, the body swayed like a dandelion, dodging the enemy's powerful attack with incredible posture and speed. This is not over yet. Master Marimu suddenly jumped up, holding the wooden sword with one hand, the blade tilted upward, the tip of the knife against the ground, and instantly raised it diagonally. Mori no breathing, 5 form, Sangju breaking the air. The green slashing the strike actually went up and cut off countless bamboo branches from high places. Type 5, bamboo breaks the air, a volley strike from bottom to top, standing like a bamboo growing in the air. After slashing out with a knife, Grandpa Senmu turned the wooden sword around, held the sword with both hands, bent his thighs, and stood firmly like a horse stance. Breath of the forest, type 6, strong grass, wind hurricane strike, dot swish, 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 swish. Countless green slashes spread wildly around Grandpa Senmu like a hurricane, and the entire bamboo forest was like a hurricane with knife light blowing. Countless green bamboos were shattered and broken, and Grandpa Senmu's body was like the tough grass in the hurricane, seemingly swaying, but not moving at all. Type 6, strong grass, wind hurricane strike, countless hurricane-like slashes swung around with himself as the center, as strong grass. After using the 6 types of swordsmanship in succession, Mr. Marimu panted slightly, and the wooden sword in his hand also had many cracks. After a moment, Mr. Marimu raised the wooden sword to the front, holding it tightly with both hands, and wow! A dazzling green light that was almost visible to the naked eye suddenly burst out from the wooden sword. Breath of the forest, 7th type, wooden dragon sky flying, slash. As Mr. Marimu's voice fell, he leaped into the air and slashed. The endless dazzling green light seemed to really transform into a roaring forest dragon with claws and fangs. Boom! After a deafening roar, countless smoke and dust were stirred. Shinichi stared at the front, and the smoke and dust gradually dissipated. What appeared in front of Shinichi was a deep trench, 7th form wooden dragon sky soaring, slash, a full-strength attack, the strongest attack from the legendary dragon transformed by the sword light. Modified form wooden dragon sky soaring, flash, wooden dragon sky soaring, rising dragon. Crack! The wooden sword in the hands of Mr. Marimu finally couldn't hold on any longer and broke into a pile of fragments. Mr. Marimu panted and looked at Shinichi. This is the breath of the forest, kid, are you ready? Chapter 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Under the moonlight, Shinichi stood with his upper body naked, bent over and struggling. On his back was a spherical rock that was 10 times bigger than him. The violent panting sounded like the sound of a broken bellows, and beads of sweat kept sliding down Shinichi's body. Shinichi's body after the demonization reached a peak in both proportion and appearance, with just the right 6-pack abs, strong and stylish arms, clear mermaid lines, and blood vessels faintly protruding under the skin. This was a perfect body that would make most women crazy, but Shinichi's face looked quite ferocious at this time, with bloodshot eyes, blue veins on his forehead, clenched teeth, and black hair completely wet with sweat. The huge rock on his back was too heavy, and he was almost at his limit. Roar! Because of the excessive force, Shinichi's throat actually let out a series of low roars, and the scarlet in his eyes also tended to deepen. The fangs in his mouth and the claws on his fingertips unconsciously stretched out. Just before Shinichi was about to go crazy, the voice of Grandpa Marimu suddenly came from the huge rock on his back. Shinichi. Hold on. Don't be confused by the power after the demonization. Only by relying on your own strength can you practice the real forest breath. There is still the last half a quarter of an hour, hold on. Don't give up. It turned out that Grandpa Marimu was still standing on the huge rock. At this time, he also loudly encouraged Shinichi to hold on. Grandpa Marimu's voice made Shinichi's gradually irritable eyes more clear. Ah. The low roar in his throat also turned back to the angry roar of a human boy. Finally, half a quarter of an hour later, bang. With a loud bang, the huge rock fell down, smashing a pit in the ground. Plop. Shinichi sat directly on the ground, his chest heaving violently. Old Man Mori also jumped off the giant rock, and took out a kettle that had been prepared from a wooden box on the side, and handed it to Shinichi. Shinichi was not polite, and took it and swallowed the tea in the kettle in big gulps. That's right, the tea in the kettle was wisteria tea, and Shinichi drank wisteria tea not because he needed to replenish water after intense training, but to curb his own demonic power. The wisteria flower element, which is highly toxic to ordinary evil spirits, has become a tool for Shinichi to temporarily suppress his demonic power. In fact, when Old Man Mori proposed that Shinichi drink more wisteria tea at the beginning, Shinichi once thought that Old Man Mori regretted not wanting to teach him the breathing method and wanted to poison himself. However, in later attempts, Shinichi found that wisteria tea would not cause any harm to him, but would suppress the originally powerful demonic power in his body. Relying on wisteria tea to suppress his own power, Shinichi was able to practice forest breathing with Old Man Mori, which was destined to be a difficult road of practice, although the power was suppressed. The physical fitness and strength of Shinichi after the transformation into a ghost were there, which was definitely not comparable to that of ordinary people. Therefore, in order to train Shinichi, Grandpa Mori increased the training volume of ordinary people by 100 times. Of course, Shinichi didn't know all this. He always thought that the intensity of the training of the Mori family for generations was the same as his own. He couldn't help but respect Grandpa Mori and his family ancestors in his heart. Breathing method. The most important thing is of course breathing. Practicing forest breathing not only ensures that you can feel the natural breathing, but also allows the majestic vitality behind the natural breathing to be integrated into every blood vessel, every muscle, and every cell of your body, so that you can be filled with huge vitality. So a training that can be regarded as hell for Shinichi, a ghost, began. Carrying a huge rock weighing nearly 20 tons for 2 hours is just one of the links. He ran 100,000 meters back and forth in the underground mine where the Mori family used to live. The oxygen in the mine was extremely thin. He dragged the 20-meter-long wooden grain-carrying boat of the Mori family back and forth in the river next to Asano River village. He also had to withstand countless slashes of the forest-breathing land type used by Grandpa Mori every day. Of course, the slashes were weakened. There were also various other trainings that sounded like cruel punishments in the 18 levels of hell. If it were an ordinary person, he would be exhausted to death in 2 days if he continued to train at such an intensity, but Shinichi would not, because he is a ghost. He can't be tired to death. If Shinichi returned to his original world with his current physique, he would never starve to death, because the immortal ghost physique is simply a natural working saint body. Just kidding. Under the devilish training that even Grandpa Mori himself was terrified, Shinichi has undergone earth-shaking changes in just half a year. The wind gently blew the hair around my ears, and a slender white hand rested on my waist, the hilt of the wooden sword in the middle, his eyes slightly closed, his handsome face calm. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound from the sky came into his ears, as if something was hitting him like a cannonball. The whistling sound was getting closer and closer, but the slightly closed eyes still had no intention of opening. Soon, a black shadow was clearly visible. Finally, the white and slender hands moved. Forest breathing, type 5, Sangju breaking the sky. The ordinary wooden sword was raised in an instant, and the green slash was cut out instantly, and the stone chips flew, and a rock the size of a human head was shattered into powder. The slightly closed eyes slowly opened, and the scarlet eyes that had always carried a hint of tyranny had turned into a softer and calmer peach color. Without even looking behind him, Shinichi slowly put away the wooden sword. Sure enough, the next second, crisp applause rang out behind him. Grandpa Marimu smiled with satisfaction, clapping and saying, "I guessed right, Shinichi, you are a genius who has surpassed all the children of Marimu. You are much stronger than I was back then. I have nothing to teach you about the first 7 forms of forest breathing." After hearing the voice of Grandpa Marimu, Shinichi slowly turned around. No matter who saw Shinichi's appearance now, no one would think that this handsome and arrogant boy would be a ghost. What a joke! How could such a good-looking boy be a ghost? Where does he have the characteristics of a ghost? Does he have fangs in his mouth? It's just that the canine teeth are a little sharp, and there are no scary claws on his fingertips. And this boy exudes a strong scent of wisteria flowers. Which evil ghost would like such a strong scent of wisteria flowers? Grandpa, I'm proud that you praise me like this, Shinichi said with a smile. His tone was not as impatient and impulsive as at the beginning. Shinichi, who was practicing the forest breathing at all times, seemed to be immersed in the soft and majestic natural vitality, which made people feel a sense of affinity when they saw him. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Except for the first 7 forms of forest breathing, I have nothing else to teach you. In the past year, your performance has been better than I expected. On the country road, Grandpa Mori and Shinichi walked on the road in the moonlight. Along the way, the old man kept nagging like an ordinary old man, repeating how good Shinichi was. Fortunately, Shinichi was used to it and his ears automatically filtered out Grandpa Mori's long-winded words. In this way, Grandpa Mori talked all the way, and Shinichi also listened passively and silently all the way until the two came to the destination of this trip, Butterfly Medicine House. Dong dong dong. The wooden door was gently knocked. After a while, with a creak, a thin figure opened the wooden door. The violet eyes immediately widened after seeing the 2 people at the door, and immediately ran into the medicine house. Sister. Grandpa Mori and that cold-faced man are here again. Butterfly gestured to her sister breathlessly. Butterfly Kane stretched out a finger helplessly and tapped her sister's forehead. Shao Shinobu, it's impolite to say that about Shinichi-kun. You go find Dad, and I'll go entertain Grandpa Mori and Shinichi-kun. Soon, the lights in the living room of Butterfly Pharmacy came on. On the tatami, Grandpa Mori and the Butterfly family were kneeling very standardly. Only Shinichi was sitting cross-legged. Butterfly Shinobu, who was sitting in a small corner, looked at Shinichi with dissatisfaction and muttered in a low voice, impolite cold-faced man. Swish. For some reason, Shinichi seemed to hear this muttering, and turned his face in an instant, staring at Butterfly Shinobu with his pink eyes. In the moment when no one else noticed, he opened his mouth slightly, and his 2 canine teeth seemed to stretch in an instant, and his pink eyes also turned scarlet in an instant, and the whole person looked quite scary. Ah! Shinobu Kocho was startled by Shinichi's sudden change of expression. She interrupted the adult's conversation with a cry of surprise. Kocho Yaoshin frowned and said to her little daughter sternly, Shinobu. It's so rude to yell so rudely. Kane, take Shinobu back to bed. Shinobu Kocho widened her violet eyes and pointed at Shinichi and said, No. It's him. Hey. What's the matter? He just clearly. Before Shinobu Kocho finished speaking, Kane Kocho grabbed her sister's hand and said to Grandpa Moriki and Shinichi apologetically, I'm so sorry, Grandpa Moriki and Shinichi, it's Shinobu who is too naughty, but she didn't mean it, please don't take it to heart. After saying that, she was about to pull Shinobu Kocho away, but Shinobu Kocho was obviously a little resistant and was still trying to explain what she had just seen. No. Sister, he really changed his face just now. Believe me. On the other hand, Shinichi was sitting there with a normal expression. How could he change his face as Shinobu Kocho said? Glancing at the 2 sisters leaving the living room, Shinichi snorted imperceptibly. He just wanted to scare the child named Kocho Shinobu. Did he think he didn't know what she called him behind his back? Cold-faced man. The most intolerable thing is that this stubborn little girl actually said that her Shiba Inu Enji was not cute at all. It's outrageous. The rude little brat knows nothing. In this year, Shinichi also followed Mr. Mori to the Butterfly Medicine House at night many times. It was not for anything else, but for the purple wisteria flower medicinal materials. In order to practice forest breathing, Shinichi would take a lot of purple wisteria flower tea every day to suppress the powerful ghost power in his body. It was also relying on purple wisteria flowers that Shinichi now looked nothing like a ghost. Just like Kocho Shinobu said, Shinichi looked like a cold-faced teenager. We keep bothering at night. Yao Shinjuan won't blame us, right? Mr. Mori said with a smile. Butterfly Yaoshin also smiled and said, if that's the case, I should thank Mr. Moriki. You are a big customer of our pharmacy. By the way, this time I have prepared the kind of wisteria pills you told me about before, but the taste will be very bitter. Really? That's great. The taste is not a problem. We won't mind. Old man Moriki said and glanced at Shinichi beside him. Anyway, this child can't taste anything other than sweetness. It's bitter. It's not for an old man like me to eat. That's good, but why does Mr. Moriki like wisteria so much? In fact, I have a lot of medicines that are more effective and cheaper than wisteria. Butterfly Yaoshin asked his doubts at the right time. Old man Moriki touched his gray hair, because in the legend, wisteria is a blessing flower that can resist evil spirits and bring good luck. Wisteria not only has medicinal value, but also has the meaning of protecting the house from evil spirits, so I like this flower as medicine. Butterfly Yaoshin was surprised to hear this answer. A little surprised, is that so? I didn't expect Mr. Mori to be so traditional. I've learned a lesson. Although she said so, Butterfly Yaoshin didn't really take Mr. Mori's words to heart. After all, evil spirits. It's just an old story to scare children. After getting the prepared wisteria flower medicinal materials and special wisteria flower pills, Mr. Mori and Shinichi were ready to leave. Butterfly Yaoshin sent them out of the medicine house with a lantern. When Butterfly Yaoshin returned to the inner room, the lights in the two daughters' rooms were still on. In the room, Butterfly Shinobu angrily emphasized that she didn't lie, it's true. The teeth of the cold-faced man suddenly became so long, and his eyes turned into a scary red. Butterfly Kane looked at her sister helplessly, and finally could only say in a coaxing tone, okay, I believe Xiaonin, go to bed early, okay? I have to get up early tomorrow to sort out the medicinal materials with my mother. Sister, you coaxed the child. I really didn't lie. Butterfly Shinobu's stubborn voice continued to ring. Outside the room, Butterfly Yaoshin, who was listening to the conversation between the two sisters, also shook his head helplessly. What a stubborn child. On the country road, Mr. Mori and Shinichi, each carrying a big bag, set out on the road home. Shinichi, did you really scare the child of Butterfly's family just now? Does it matter? Nothing, but scaring a child is not a glorious thing. I am happy. Mr. Mori looked at Shinichi, who was occasionally stubborn. It was also at this time that he could feel the childishness of a teenager of the same age in Shinichi. No matter what, in the eyes of Mr. Mori, Shinichi was just a teenager. I am really old, and the future belongs to you young people. Chapter 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the bright room, Mr. Moriki was kneeling upright. Beside him, Rukawa Chinana was wearing a beautiful kimono, holding dried meat in her hand, and was happily teasing the furry meatball in front of her. In half a year, under Rukawa Chinana's unlimited feeding, the little Shiba Inu Enji swelled up rapidly at the speed of a balloon. Now if you don't look carefully, who would have thought that the furry big meatball next to Rukawa Chinana would be a Shiba Inu? Mr. Moriki's expression was a little serious. Since he came to the room an hour ago, he has not said a word, just kneeling quietly. It was almost dawn. Shinichi, who had been practicing all night, opened the door with his wooden sword. As soon as he entered the room, he saw the kneeling old man Moriki, Rukawa Chinana, and Enji. He was stunned for a moment, put down the wooden sword casually, and sat on the ground in a very ungraceful manner. Old man, what's the matter with you suddenly coming to see me? But Shinichi was responded to by silence. Old man Moriki's eyes were not looking at Shinichi at all, but just staring in a daze in a certain direction. It was not until Shinichi asked again that old man Moriki came to his senses. With a strange smile, it's Shinichi, are you back from training? Isn't it obvious enough? Old man, if you are really old, you should rest more. You are so old, don't bother with anything. Shinichi said without thinking too much, and then called out to Yuan Air on the side, Yuan Air. Ha! Come to me. Hearing the call of his master, Meatball Yuan Air hesitated for a while, and finally reluctantly stretched out his tongue to lick Rukawa Chinana's hand before running to his master happily. Seeing this, Shinichi was furious and flicked Enji's head hard. "You greedy stupid dog. You only know how to eat. Looking at your current state, you are more like a Shiba pig." Enji, who was flicked on the head, immediately dropped his tail, his ears drooped, and he whimpered in grievance, "You are wronged after I said a few words to you. You want to be beaten." Rukawa Chinana on the side quickly advised, "Master Shinichi, don't blame Enji, I fed him too much. If you want to blame someone, blame me." "No, this is my dog. Why do you feel like I am the one who is wrong when you say that?" Shinichi was speechless. Ahem. The soft cough of Mr. Moriki interrupted this little farce, and Shinichi also looked at Mr. Moriki. Mr. Morimu pondered for a while, and then said to Shinichi, "Shinichi, it has been more than 8 months since you started practicing forest breathing. You have mastered the first 7 forms of forest breathing in such a short time. It is really excellent. I have nothing to teach you except the ancient books that record the other forms of swordsmanship, so." Mr. Morimu's eyes suddenly became sharp. "So, Shinichi, it's time for you to become a master." After saying this, Shinichi was stunned. Become a master? The time in Morimu's mansion can be said to be the most comfortable time for Shinichi since he came to this world. He practiced forest breathing every day, teased Enji in his spare time, and sneaked out of the mansion from time to time to play in the night market of Takanagawa village. Unconsciously, Shinichi has regarded Morimu's mansion as his first home in this world, but now, Mr. Morimu's words of becoming a master made Shinichi stunned, and at the same time realized what he was going to do. He is not only a ghost now, but also a swordsman who has learned the breathing method. His mission and goal is to kill the evil ghosts that bring disaster to the world. Taking a deep breath, Shinichi raised his head, with a firm look in his pink eyes. "Grandpa, I understand, don't worry, I won't forget what I promised you, I will use the breath of the forest to kill the evil spirits." "Very good." Grandpa Mori nodded with satisfaction, then stood up, carefully took out the emerald green sun blade that had been enshrined in the scabbard behind him, walked to Shinichi, and said solemnly, "This sword, the dragon of the forest, is the inheritance left by Shinichi's ancestor. Today, I will hand it over to you, Shinichi. From now on, you are the new generation of the breath of the forest. Please make sure to continue the breath of the forest." Shinichi took over the sun blade named the dragon of the forest, and it was slightly heavy in his hand. It was not only the weight of the sun blade itself, but also because the sword represented the inheritance of the breath of the forest. "Don't worry, old man, I will." Shinichi also made a solemn promise. Mr. Mori nodded with satisfaction and relief, then returned to the place where he had just knelt. "There is one last thing." At this time, Shinichi was pulling out the emerald Nichiren sword from its sheath, admiring the gorgeous inscriptions on the blade, and casually asked, "What happened last?" Swish. Swish. 2 strange noises, and the extremely strong smell of blood instantly filled the whole room. The scarlet blood from nowhere splashed all over Mr. Mori, but Mr. Mori looked normal, as if he was not surprised. Rukawa China's little face became visibly nervous. Shinichi was stunned. What was going on? Before Shinichi could react, a strong and extremely tempting smell of blood suddenly entered his nose. That feeling was simply ecstatic and extremely salivating. That smell seemed to be a wonderful wine, and it was as tempting as the wine of God in the heavenly palace. Swish. Shinichi's eyes instantly turned blood red, the fangs in his mouth instantly emerged, and the black claws also grew in an instant. The originally handsome boy instantly became a hungry evil ghost. A low roar came from his throat, and Shinichi's scarlet eyes stared at Mr. Mori, fragrant. What a nice smell. The blood on the old man smells so nice. Damn it. I can't control it. I really want to feast on it now. Old man Morimu looked at Shinichi, who suddenly turned into a demon calmly. This was also the last test for Shinichi. If Shinichi could restrain his desire for the best rare blood, then Shinichi would be considered to have truly completed his practice. Evil ghosts feed on human flesh and blood, and there is a possibility that one rare blood human will appear among thousands of people. This rare blood has a fatal attraction to ghosts. One rare blood human can even beat more than 100 ordinary people. In fact, for hundreds of years, it is not that no one in the Morimu family chose to fall into demons like their ancestors in order to learn the complete forest breathing. It's just that the firm will that those people thought of themselves disappeared without a trace after they became demons. Every Morimu disciple who tried to learn the forest breathing after the demonization, without exception, fell into a real evil ghost. Whenever that happened, the Morimu family would get rid of these fallen clansmen at all costs. Shinichi, you are better than anyone else, you must hold on, you can't succumb to your desires. Old man Moriki kept muttering, but Shinichi was almost going crazy at this time. Damn it! How can it smell so good? No. I swear, I absolutely. I will never eat people. Shinichi hugged his head in pain, roared horribly, and rolled on the ground. Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah! Seeing his master in pain, the little Shiba Inu Enji became very anxious and kept shouting around Shinichi, trying to wake up his master's consciousness. Roar! But Shinichi's figure suddenly jumped up, and rushed directly to Mr. Moriki before Mr. Moriki and China Rukawa could react. China Rukawa's eyes widened, and the hand hidden in her sleeves instantly clenched a rope. She remembered the instructions of Mr. Mitsuyo: if Mr. Shinichi did not restrain his desire to eat people, pull the rope immediately. Boom! The wooden table in front of Mr. Moriki was smashed to pieces, and Shinichi's sharp black claws were only a few centimeters away from Mr. Moriki's face, but at this critical moment, Shinichi's body suddenly stopped, fangs exposed, scarlet eyes full of bloodshot, forehead and face full of veins, one arm trembling constantly. Shinichi clenched his teeth and panted, his chest heaving violently, and the other arm pierced into his chest at this time, in order to curb his desire to eat people. Shinichi pierced his chest fiercely, slowly pulling out his arm. The surging blood immediately splashed out, while the wound was wriggling and repairing. Shinichi's originally violent scarlet eyes gradually began to calm down. Plop. Shinichi, who forcibly suppressed his desire, knelt on one knee and raised his head weakly. Old man, don't you plan to give an explanation? Although Mr. Mori's face was covered with blood, when he saw the clarity in Shinichi's eyes, finally, turbid tears flowed from his eyes, and his voice became choked. You did it, kid. And Rukawa Chinana, who had been hanging his heart high on the side, also exhaled heavily. Master Shinichi really did it. Grandpa Mori immediately took out a wooden box that he had prepared long ago. Regardless of his embarrassment, he carefully opened the wooden box and took out a small jade bottle. Child, this is a gift for you. Take it. It's already dawn. China, pull the rope. Grandpa Mori said to Rukawa China. After hearing this, Rukawa China immediately pulled the rope in her sleeves. At the moment when Rukawa China pulled the rope, there was a sound of gears turning on the smooth walls of the room. In less than a minute, several large windows appeared on the walls of the originally closed and lightless room. The rising dawn also spread its dazzling and warm sunlight all over the room. Walking to the window, old man Morimu looked at the gradually rising sun. He had a premonition that Shinichi would be as dazzling as the rising dawn in the future, while people like him would already belong to the setting sun. So, old man, if I really can't help it, you are going to kill me with the sun, right? Shinichi's playful voice suddenly sounded behind him. Old man Morimu did not refute, but smiled and said, that is my choice. If you fail, I will die with you, and the breath of the forest will completely lose its successor. Is it that serious? Old man Morimu turned his head after all, and the first thing he saw was Shinichi standing in the sun. Shinichi, who hadn't seen the sun for a long time or even almost a year, squinted his eyes, raised his hands to block his eyes, trying to feel the light and heat of the sun. When he opened his eyes, one of his two pink eyes had turned green. If Muzan was here and saw Shinichi's situation, he would be jealous to the point of madness. Why? Why can this ghost stand freely in the sun? Even as the strongest ghost king, it is difficult for it to survive under the sun. However, Shinichi knows that his current situation cannot be regarded as standing freely under the sun. Now he is more like standing under the sun wearing a layer of clothes, and the clothes condensed by the power of vitality, and the secret of everything lies in the jade bottle that Mr. Mori gave him not long ago. In that bottle of diluted blood, Shinichi learned a new blood ghost art Nei Luosheng. A special blood ghost art combined with forest breathing, while maintaining the full concentration of forest breathing, Shinichi can condense an invisible life close on the surface of his body. Relying on the state of Nei Luosheng, Shinichi saw the first sunrise after his demonization. Seeing this, perhaps everyone can guess whose blood is in the jade bottle. How does it feel to see the sun again? Asked Mr. Marimu. Shinichi replied, it's like being reborn. Although he couldn't feel the light and heat of the sun while wearing the clothes of life, being able to stand under the sun was enough to make Shinichi excited for a long time. Of course, this also came at a price. In the state of Sudarashoman, Shinichi couldn't use any demonic power and could only rely purely on his own physical strength or the breathing method he practiced. Even the strong immortal body was also affected. Once injured, his wounds would be difficult to heal. The most important thing is that if his physical strength is exhausted and he cannot maintain the full concentration of Mori's breathing, then Shinichi will instantly lose the protection of Nirashing and be exposed to the sun. At that time, no matter how powerful Shinichi is, he will be wiped out. Therefore, the advice given to him by Mr. Mori is to maintain good physical strength during the day and avoid all battles. At noon, in front of the gate of Mori's mansion, Shinichi twitched and rejected the tattered green haori given by Mr. Mori. Yes, it was the one that Mr. Mori wore before. According to the old man, this haori was also left by the ancestor of Moriki Shinichi. Mr. Mori, who was rejected by Shinichi, expressed great regret and tried to persuade Shinichi. But Shinichi was determined not to do it. He had been a beggar for 3 years in this world and he didn't want to wear beggar's clothes again. After putting on his clothes, carrying a bag of food, mainly dorayaki and wisteria flower balls with added ingredients, and hanging the Nichiren sword inherited from generation to generation in the Moriki family on his waist, followed by fat Enji, Shinichi formally said goodbye to old man Moriki. Enji, who was reluctant to leave Rukawa China, left the Moriki mansion. Walking on the road, Shinichi stopped at a corner and finally looked back at the Moriki mansion, which was his first home in this world. On the country road, a pair of deerskin boots kicked away the dead wood blocking the road. Shinichi, holding Enji, saw an acquaintance by the stream. It's you. Shinobu Kocho, who was wearing a patterned kimono, immediately recognized Shinichi's cold face. She held a basket of medicinal herbs in one hand and pointed at Shinichi with the other. It's you, the cold-faced man. It's all your fault. You caused my father to teach me a lesson. You have to apologize to me. Koho Shinobu pointed at Shinichi and yelled angrily. Shinichi didn't say anything, but looked around. It seemed that no one was around. Very good. Koho Shinobu was still accusing Shinichi angrily, but the next second Shinichi appeared in front of her in an instant. He was so fast that she didn't react. A tall figure appeared in front of her eyes, looking at her height that was only as high as Shinichi's chest, and then looking at the long sword on the belt buckle on Shinichi's waist. Koho Shinobu's beautiful violet eyes trembled. You. Before Koho Shinobu could speak, Shinichi suddenly raised his hand, bent his fingers to accumulate power, and burst. It hurts. Koho Shinobu covered his forehead, and his eyes were instantly wet, painful. Goodbye, rude child. After saying this, Shinichi strode away without looking back. He wanted to do this a long time ago, to give this rude little girl a head blow to make her remember it. Shinobu Kocho, holding her forehead, didn't hear clearly what Shinichi said. By the time she came to her senses, Shinichi had already run far away, and it was impossible for her to catch up with him in her kimono, so Shinobu, with a red forehead, could only grit her teeth and kick the basket of medicinal herbs to vent her anger. Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In an ordinary pavilion, Shinichi opened a note with an address on it. Grandpa Mori said that it was Fujiki Mountain, where the final selection of members of the Demon Slayer Corps would be held. However, Grandpa Mori had been away from the team for too many years and could not remember the time of the final selection. He suggested that Shinichi could try to find members of the Demon Slayer Corps nearby to join the Corps. Looking at the branch in his hand, Shinichi curled his lips and tore the note into pieces. "Sorry, Grandpa, I don't want to join the Demon Slayer Corps for the time being." Perhaps he still had some grudges about what happened on Shirai Mountain, so Shinichi then walked on a road in the opposite direction of Fujiki Mountain. After walking for an unknown period of time, it was getting dark, and Shinichi also came to an unknown village. Strangely, it was only dusk, and the sun had not completely set. Every household in the village had closed their doors, and there was no one on the road. Shinichi held Yuenji in his arms, and his two eyes of different colors quickly scanned the surrounding environment. Behind the closed doors, Shinichi felt a series of obscure and vigilant gazes. "Interesting, there is something strange about this village," Shinichi muttered, then leaned over to put Yuenji down, and gently kicked Yuenji's but with his toes. "Move quickly, look at how fat you are now, China really spoils you too much." Yuenji moved his body reluctantly, and through telepathy, Shinichi received Yuenji's message. "I feel wronged, the master is bad." But Shinichi didn't care about these, ignored the wronged Yuenji, and strode into this strange village. With one hand on the handle of the sun-will sword hanging at his waist, Shinichi wandered around in this small village. The villagers basically hid in their houses, alert to Shinichi, the sudden stranger. Even if Shinichi could accidentally see the villagers who were not hiding in the house, the villagers would immediately slip away when they saw him as an outsider, and Shinichi would not get any response even if he knocked on the door to ask. Behind a wooden door, a pair of bright eyes looked at Shinichi outside through the crack of the door. "Grandpa, should we let that brother leave quickly? There is. Before the little girl finished her words, a pair of old hands covered her mouth, and then her grandfather's scolding sounded in her ears. "Shoo. It's just right that this stranger came, otherwise it might be our turn to worship Lord Ginkami tonight. Now it's good, we don't have to worry." Time passed by minute, and the sun finally set a little bit, and the night covered the entire sky. But the strange thing was that at night, no family in the whole village lit up the lights, and the whole village seemed to be in a dead silence. Shinichi, who was holding the hilt of the knife, suddenly stopped, his ears moved slightly, and then he looked in a certain direction thoughtfully. Suddenly, creak. The sound of a wooden door being pushed open sounded in Shinichi's ears. In a wooden house next to him, a nervous head stuck out of the wooden door. The man who suddenly opened the door first looked around vigilantly. After confirming that there was no one, he immediately stretched out a hand to greet Shinichi and signaled him to come in quickly. Shinichi was stunned for a while, and without thinking much, he picked up Yuenji and walked into the man's wooden house. Click. As soon as Shinichi entered the house, the sound of the wooden house door slamming shut came from behind him, and the man exhaled with relief. The wooden house was pitch black, and he couldn't see his hand in front of his face, but Shinichi was not panicked. In his eyes and between his breaths, everything in the whole wooden house could not escape his perception. "Young man, I'm sorry for making you feel wronged. Please follow me." A man's apologetic voice suddenly sounded in front of Shinichi. After that, under Shinichi's watch, the man squatted down, fumbled to pull a chain, and then pulled hard. A wooden board was pulled up, revealing a narrow basement entrance. The two came to the basement. The man struck a match, and lit up several oil lamps in the basement one by one. In the blink of an eye, the whole basement was bright. It was naturally impossible to do this with just a few oil lamps, but, coincidentally, on the walls around the entire basement, there were bronze mirrors of different sizes and shapes hanging one after another, which reflected the light from several lamps together, illuminating the entire basement. After lighting a few oil lamps, the man also brewed a pot of tea. After pouring out a cup, he asked Shinichi, "Brother, do you want a cup of tea?" Shinichi shook his head and did not reach out to take the teacup. Since entering the wooden house, Shinichi has not said a word. He has been looking around. Did something happen in your village? It feels very strange here. When the man heard Shinichi's words, he sighed with a gloomy face and put down the teacup. Yes, I won't hide it from you, there is a monster in our village. Seeing that Shinichi didn't show any surprise, the man knew that his guess was right. "Brother, you are indeed a ghost hunter, right? Shinichi looked at the man. Oh. How did you know? The man pointed to the Nichiren sword on Shinichi's waist, because not long ago, 2 ghost hunters came to our village. They all had long swords like yours on their waists. They called themselves members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Our village is called Teranishi Village. Because there was a famous temple to the east of the village a long time ago, passers-by have always called our village Teranishi Village until now. My name is Komiya Eiji. My ancestors were mirror makers who cast bronze mirrors for generations, and the craft has been passed down to my generation. Originally, life in our village was very normal until one day a year ago, when the monster appeared. Komiya Jingjia's face was heavy as he recounted the great changes that had taken place in Terasai village a few years ago. One night, a child from a family in Terasai village suddenly disappeared. The villagers searched for the child for a day and a night but could not find him. What was even more terrifying was that from then on, children would disappear every once in a while. Until today, more than a dozen children have disappeared. The villagers said that it was the ancient evil ghost Yin Jian who came to seek revenge. Ancient evil ghost. Shinichi raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? Komiya Jingjia smiled bitterly and said helplessly, speaking of which, this matter has something to do with my ancestors, because more than 100 years ago, the most famous mirror maker in Terasai village was not my ancestor, but a mirror maker named Yin Jian. However, one night, Yin Jian's family all died at home for no reason. At that time, the villagers believed that my ancestor was the murderer, because my ancestor was the only apprentice of Master Yin Jian.